everyone has been through something.
Yeah.
So, and if they hadn't, then my jokes wouldn't be funny.
Katie, let it out with Katie. Let it out with Katie Dalebout, enthusiast and curator of people and ideas you need to hear. Hi everyone, welcome to my podcast. My name is Katie Dalebout. I am your host, and this week's episode is one I've been excited to air for a really long time, as you'll hear in a moment, or actually you just heard from in the intro quote from Beth Stelling. She's a comedian and a really cool, kind person, as you'll also hear in this episode. I was so happy to be able to connect with her. She knows friends of the podcast, Simi and Tim. She actually went to school with them, and so we talk about them a little bit in this episode. So I'm so grateful that they connected me with Beth. I originally heard her on the Pete Holmes podcast, which you guys know I love. You Made It Weird with Pete Holmes. And I'd wanted to interview Beth for a long time. And then Simi and Tim told me that they know her, and we got connected, and we recorded this a couple months ago, so you'll still hear some old references, like Adele's album had just come out, and obviously it's been out for a bunch of time now, and you'll hear some other old references, like I ask my old signature question about the Wellness Wonderland, which I still love and I still might ask people, so it was cool to hear Beth's answer to that and her answer to a bunch of other questions. We talk about LA and moving to LA, which was cool because I'd never been to LA when we recorded this, and now I have, so I understand what she means more. And we hear about creativity and comedy and her writing process and body image and so much more. She's just a delightful person. It's a delightful interview. And this week's podcast is sponsored by North Books, which is my favorite new journal company. And I talked to the founder and CEO, Zeb of North Books, at the end of this episode, and I get to know him. And he's just a really cool dude I'm excited to hang out with and be friends with. And he sent me a bunch of journals that I've been giving out on my book tour for my book, Let It Out, A Journey Through Journaling, available now in Barnes & Noble, on Amazon. Be sure to check it out if you haven't already. And it's great. I was in Chicago last weekend, and I was able to give out journals there and in Columbus, so thank you to North Books, and be sure to check them out. Thank you so much for sponsoring the show this week. It's been amazing to have these journals to be able to give to people to go with the book, and they're the same perfect size as the book, which I talk about in the interview. So anyway, very exciting. The only update for me is that if you want to hear this podcast done live in front of an audience with two guests in Toronto, you're in luck, because on August 6th, I will be in Toronto with a live episode of the podcast with my friends Nikki and Davida. So information on that, how to get tickets, is all in the show notes of this episode. So sign up. Tickets are $10, and the proceeds go to support Real Girl, the organization that I love so much, that actually Pete Holmes' girlfriend Valerie works for and got me connected with. And the founder, Anea, will be coming on the podcast super soon, so I'm really excited to support them. Real Girl means a lot to me. It's a really important organization to me. I was looking for a great charity to support with my work, and this is the perfect one. So I hope to see a lot of you in Toronto. And until then, enjoy this episode with Beth. Be sure to check out her website, which is in the show notes. It's sweetbeth.com, but it's also in the show notes for her tour dates. She might be coming somewhere near you, and that would be really cool for you to go see her comedy show. I can't wait to see her live someday really soon, I'm sure. And tell her hi. Tell her you heard her on the podcast. And she is also writing for the show Crashing, which is Pete Holmes' show on HBO, and she's writing on it, which is just so cool. And I know it's going to be fantastic, and she told me in an email that it is airing in February, which is so soon, and I'm so excited to know that. So anyway, be ready to check that out in February, and be ready now to check out her website. Grab your tickets for Toronto, check out my book, and again, I know it's tedious, I know it's kind of dumb, and I say it every week, but leaving a review on iTunes helps so much, and subscribing. But most of all, share the show with a friend. If you like it, if it makes you feel less alone, if it makes you feel like you want to smile or laugh perhaps, or maybe it just keeps you company on your commute, share it with a friend who also might have a long commute. Or maybe they work from home and they don't have a commute at all, but they might like a podcast too. You never know. So just share it. Thank you so much to Beth. Thank you to North Books. Check them out. They're really great. Stick around for the end of the episode when I will tell you who's coming on the show next week. One more thing, just to give you an FYI that we had some Skype issues, some internet issues actually with this. So Beth actually had to call in on the telephone. So it's kind of old school, which is cool. It sounds very radio-y, like she's calling into the program. So it might sound a little bit different. So just be aware of that. You should be able to hear her perfectly. We messed with the audio levels a little bit. So hopefully you can hear everything, but just FYI, it might sound a little bit different from when we record over the interweb. So enjoy Beth Stelling. Guys, welcome back. Beth Stelling is here, and not only is she a famous comedian who's been on Conan and Jimmy Kimmel and the Pete Holmes show, but she's also old friends with one of my best friends, Simi and Tim, who you guys also know from the podcast. So thank you so much for being here, Beth.
No, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Yay. Yeah, we made it. We finally figured that out with the internet and the time zones, and we're talking, so this is so amazing. I'm so glad you're here.
Yes, thanks for being easygoing too. We're both pretty chill people.
Yeah,
I think.
Yes, maybe that's why I like you so much.
Very low key.
You're in LA, but you, like me, are from the Midwest, right? And you grew up in Ohio? I know you went to school there.
Yes, I grew up in Southwest Ohio and stuck around there to also go to college there, which is where I met Simi and Tim. Tim first, then Simi.
And you and Simi worked at the bagel shop together,
yes, right? we worked at Bagel and Deli together.
That's so funny. I had I don't know when this will come out, but I just was visiting them in Columbus, and we did I'm very ahead of the game, but we did a Valentine's Day episode for the podcast where they shared about the bagel time. I think you know about the bagel time, but it's how Simi and Tim met, and it was the Valentine bagel that he made her. So that was the perfect festive story to tell, which was amazing. And you were in the story, so you came up in that podcast too.
I am honored.
Yeah, and then she was like, Simi was like, I think you should interview Beth. And I was like, no way. Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. And here we are.
Yay, we made it work.
So how long have you been in LA? How old were you when you moved? I know you were in Chicago for a while before that, right?
Yes, so I've been in Los Angeles for 4 years now. And been here for 4 years, and before that I was in Chicago for 4 years. And so I guess, yeah. Wait, was that the full question? Sorry, somebody started talking in the background. I have an attention problem.
No,
I mean, I'm fully in attention. I just heard someone else's voice, and then it left me. But yeah,
no, it's
I've been in LA for 4 years.
I wanted to know.
That was the question.
That was the question, but I actually also want to know, what do you like living in LA, and being from the Midwest, what's living in LA like, and what do you like about it?
I kind of have to put myself back to the time in my life where I was going to move here, because to really honestly answer the question, because the answer is I love it here. I really enjoy living here, and I don't really see myself moving anytime soon. But when I first was moving, it was a big deal. Like anything that you can, get used to. I remember there's fear involved with it. It's a huge move. It's really far away. It's literally across the country, over halfway across the country from home and from where I was living. And it's absolutely the unknown. So I came out here with a small amount of savings. I can't remember if it was $1,200 or $1,500, but I saved that up. I thought that was my savings. And my mom happened to be turning 60, and so she was going to get herself her first new car. She never had a new car, so she's going to give me her old car. So I moved out here with like $1,200, my mom's old Mercury Sable, all my stuff in the car, my bike on the back. And I didn't, you can't really know what to expect. I had visited a handful of times, come and done shows on my own, stayed with friends, checked it out, which actually really, it's not a surprise. When you visit, that will form how you feel about LA. Because people will visit here and can really have a bad time, and then they'll never like LA or they won't want to move here. But I had such good visits here before I moved. I think some people come and stay in a neighborhood that they don't like, because just like any major city, there's so many different neighborhoods, and they all, they're all so different. So if you stay in Hollywood and that sort of gritty vibe is not your thing, then yeah, you're going to think LA is pretty gross. But if you stay up in like someone's beautiful apartment in the hills of Silver Lake, you're going to be like, wow, this could be my life. So I think the coolest part about moving out here was, it's scary. There's a fear of the unknown, so it's a risk. Now I'm not saying I don't experience any sort of uncertainty, but I've worked 8 years in stand-up and 4 years out here to get where I am now, and I'm always working towards something new, but I've come a long way for sure, where I have to actually remember that there was fear involved. It's just like when someone asks me, like, do you get nervous before you go on stage? It's like, I'm not impenetrable, but, I don't get nervous before regular shows. If I start to think, sometimes I'll get my heart beating, or if I start to overthink something, or, if I'm performing, if I'm doing a television set, then, my heart is probably pumping more. I'm thinking, but I'm not, what am I trying to say? Immobilized.
Yeah.
By it.
It's probably gets to the point where it's like it's your job, just like, anybody else having a job. You might be nervous like for some things, like some big things, or like the first time.
You don't go to work nervous, but if you had to give a presentation or you're going on the Today Show, share one of your findings or something new that you like, it's like, then your blood's gonna pump a little quicker, and it should, because otherwise you may be dead.
Yeah, exactly. So did you know, growing up as a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up as a kid? Did you always say stand-up comedian, or did you want to be something else?
I always wanted to be a veterinarian. I can't remember anything else, really.
Thing.
I can't remember really wanting to be anything else. That was my go-to for a very long time. Even until I was probably like 18. I was like, oh, maybe I'll study that. And then I think I got a C in AP Bio, which was generous. And I was like, maybe not. Maybe you got to figure something you're actually good at. So, but yeah, it was that. But I was always the youngest, and I was always looking for attention and stuff. So I was always sort of a ham.
So then when you came to college, you decided to study theater. So was that... did you want to be an actress at that point? You still do acting now. When did you decide that you wanted to be a comedian?
I think it was a couple weeks before I was about to go away to Miami University in Ohio, which is aforementioned college. I think I had this moment of like, crap, I want to study theater, and it was scary, and it's the arts, and not probably going to be lucrative, and you're paying a lot of money to attend school, so that's where the risk and return doesn't seem like a good choice. So I think a lot of people sort of make that their last option, or think they'll do it on the side or something like that. And I think I just had a moment where I was like, no, I want to study theater, brave. And my mom, thankfully, who raised me in Ohio, always has been supportive. She's a pianist and studied performance piano. And so she was always very, very supportive of everything I did. And she didn't bat an eye at me wanting to go audition for the theater department. And because it was such a small school and not like a conservatory, I got a scholarship from that audition. And so then that made it even more helpful. And I applied for so many scholarships in my hometown, and then because I stayed in state, they also take some off that. So I was able to get through college without any debt, which is very lucky, I realized, and I did at the time too. And I had jobs. I was an RA and worked in the mailroom and the bagel shop, as we said,
Yeah.
which has crept into many of my jokes.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I always think of Simi and you, and I feel like I'm like an insider.
Yes, yeah,
I love it.
yeah. A lot of those people, I think, feel that way. A lot of bagel and deli people like those jokes.
Yeah.
I had some of the girls come out that Simi knows too when I was in New York City for New York Comedy Fest a couple weeks ago. A couple of the bagel girls came out that
Aw.
Simi knows, and they get a little woo when I talked about the bagels.
That's so funny. It's so great that you had your mom's support, and I think that's so crucial to your success in a lot of ways, probably. Because I was listening to this other podcast earlier today with BJ Novak. He was being interviewed, and he was saying that believing in yourself and having people believe in you really helps you because you can actually do the thing you want to do, like being an actor, a writer, a comedian. Where other people, like you said, they'll take a job doing something else and then do that on the side, or say they'll do that on the side, but they're too tired or
Right.
they don't. So how were you able to believe in yourself? And like, you had your mom's support, so that's obviously really helpful, but were there ever other doubters or family members, or did you doubt yourself when you either in school studying theater, or after that when you decided to be a comedian and move to Chicago and LA and actually do it? Did you ever
Yeah.
doubt if you could do it?
I think there's yeah. I mean, I've certainly had moments in my career where I thought either like, why am I doing this? What makes me special? Or like I can't believe I'm trying. I think there's, I'm a smart woman, but I think there's also like a blind stupidity that has to exist for you to be able to. Because if you were very pragmatic and you were to like actually do the math or research how many comedians, say I were that type of person that like researched how many comedians there were in Chicago and what they were up to, how many projects they were working on, and is there room for me? And if I did that, the answer would be no. So I think there's like, I just said blind stupidity, which seems a little harsh, but you have to have some sort of, there's a inflated sense of self that exists. I mean, I wouldn't be a stand-up comic if I weren't self-centered in some sort of way. And my life is, I'm the youngest of three. Because I'm a comic, a lot of my thoughts are me, which can be, detrimental to a regular lifestyle, which, as much as I love living in LA, this is not a regular lifestyle. I am not normal. I find myself, I remember when I was still in Chicago, someone had found me a manager who I've actually like since reconnected with, although she doesn't manage me, but she's a very talented woman, and it's Kirsten Ames. She represents people like Eliza Coupe, the Improvised Shakespeare Company. So she has her finger on the pulse of the Chicago scene because it's a smart thing to do. A lot of them will leave and go to New York or LA. And she'd found me, and she was just like, hey, have you thought about, writing for SNL or whatever? And I had just done stand-up, so that was really all I knew to do. And I had figured that out on my own because I'd never really, taken a class or done anything like that. But I was there, and I thought to myself, like, okay, well, I can try or whatever. But it's like the people like that sort of reaching out to you sometimes that help you along the way, saying like, hey, you are good at this, or you stand out to me, and you kind of need that. So it's not just me thinking I'm the greatest or something like that. There's sometimes people along the way saying like, hey, you're a standout, or I like what you do, that push you to keep going. Obviously, too, if you have to have some sort of success. Right. I mean, there are comics who bomb constantly and continue to do it, and I don't know if they are so unaware that they don't know, or if they just don't care, and so they continue to do it. I kind of respect that, too. But I've mentioned now a couple times, like, oh, you have to be, like, self-obsessed or self-centered. It's like, well, that's not true either. There's, like, no one is one thing. Right. So, there's give and take to everything. I lack balance sometimes. And so I'm not one thing. There are times where I'm like wildly insecure, or I don't think I don't walk around in my successes based off the fact that I think I'm the greatest. That's absolutely not
No, you're so
what I think.
humble. That's,
Yeah, so I think
what's great about it. I think that's what
and
makes your success cooler.
well, thank you. And with Kirsten, she said, I remember early on when she was like, "Hey, you have something special." And this was me just a couple years into stand up in Chicago, and I was so surprised and flattered and encouraged. But I remember her saying, like, "Are you dating anybody?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm living with my boyfriend, who I work with at the Dalebout shop." And she was like, "Well, if you pursue this, prepare for relationships to crumble." And at the time, I had already been through a lot with relationships in the sense that we all do in our early 20s. It's very tumultuous. So at the time, I thought, when I first started stand-up around 22, I thought, I can't be happy to be funny. I can't be in a healthy, loving relationship to do well up here. And that's not true. And I learned that over time. However, I've also had a relationship with a very good man who I went to Miami with and dated for a while. He's tattooed on my back, and I have jokes about him.
Yeah.
But we didn't last, and arguably it's because of my choices. So it does lead back to this sort of, I'm here and I'm not alone. I am alone on the road a lot, and I do like solitude. But yeah, I mean, it is sort of, you got to look out for yourself type of thing. It is difficult to maintain relationships, and what I'm doing, it's not impossible. And I just think I am here because I am driven, because I am stupid, because I am smart, because, I think it's so many
that's
things.
Great advice, actually. Like,
You
have to have a little bit of all of it to go for your dreams, and be a little bit naive, but also really smart and street smart and be talented. So, yeah.
Yes.
So
I talked for a while there. Sorry.
No, it's good. If you could I guess you kind of already gave a bunch of advice, but if you were to give advice to someone who was going to go after their dream of doing something that, like you said, is not a normal thing.
Yeah.
What would you kind of tell them?
Well, two things. One, let's see. So I guess one thing I struggled with at Miami is sometimes I felt like the people that were teaching me didn't love me really. Like, it was one of those things where, and I think at the time I was naive, and it was more of one of those things where I'm like, well, you just don't like me because you think I'm going to do better than you in this career, which is, a comment. That's a thought of a 22-year-old prick,
Mm-hmm.
And so what they're trying to do is say, this is going to be hard. What you're choosing to do is this going to be hard, and can you handle it? Nobody likes this sort of scared straight mentality, So anything can happen, and that's the cool part of it. My friend Jen from Miami moved out here to do creative writing, not act at all, and she was at the beach and got a Nuvaring commercial on the spot. Some guy came up to her and was like, "Hey, are you interested in this?" And she's like, I don't know. Got paid, a ridiculous amount of money, and put herself through creative writing school. So it's like, anything can happen. I can't sit here and say, "Oh, you think you want to be a comic? Well, get ready for 20 years of hell." It's like, you could kill your first set. I did. Simi and Tim were there. I destroyed. Now I watch the tape and it makes me want to vomit. But it's like, they were my friends. They were there laughing. I had I think it was a ridiculous amount of people come out to my first open mic. 70 people. So support, help. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, not as terrified as I was the very first time I let things come out of my mouth into a microphone, but and once the fear's gone, it's not gone forever.
Yeah.
I still have times where I do a new club. If I haven't been to a club and I'm going up for the first time, it's the unknown. I'm nervous.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for 8 years, which is a lot and nothing.
I think it just means that you're alive and excited about it.
Yeah, and I don't know who these people are. And I'm not familiar with the club, and I don't know what I'm getting myself into.
Yeah, new things are
So,
always scary. Just like we were talking about the move, like moving is scary,
yeah,
new relationships are scary. Like I think newness like really freaks us out as change freaks us out as humans.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, I didn't like the jadedness of the professors kind of saying, I don't know, are you ready? You can handle this, and you have to have this and that and this and that. And it's like, I talked with a young comic in New York Comedy Fest, and I cannot remember his name, and it doesn't really matter for what I'm trying to get across, but it's like, he could say, like, hey, how are things going? And I could look at him and say, like, because maybe say he wanted a Comedy Central special, that's one of his goals, and I had done that. So I could look at him and I could say, like, yeah, probably gonna be like 5 more years for you. Or he could get it next year.
Yeah.
Nothing makes sense.
Yeah.
Nothing makes sense.
Yeah.
So I remember I went back to Miami, and they had me talk to a writing class. And I had to do my best because I'm 30, so I'm not some sort of like old jaded person who's bitter about Hollywood. I had to do my best to say, like, maintain hope and make a change and try to do what works for you and do what you think is funny. And because I did do that for many years. When I first started, like, people, I didn't have tons of naysayers, but there are people on the comedy scene that were sort of like, you just whisper your punchlines, or are you even talk, you know what I mean, like, about how I was quiet and subtle and that type of thing. And I was criticized for it. And I didn't go to a lot of open mics. I just did shows. And so I got criticized for that. And it's like, well, I just did, I just did what I thought was funny. And I just kept going. So, yeah, and I didn't watch a ton of stand-up. I wasn't mirroring it. The other thing, too, is no one's path is the same. You can read Gene Lynch's book and be like, I want to be Gene Lynch. It's like, okay, well, do you want to live in Chicago 30 years ago? Well, that's impossible.
Yeah.
Do you want to struggle with addiction to alcohol? I mean, you can try, but if it's not a part of your genetics, you know what I mean? Like, you want to overcome this or that, or struggle with your sexuality and your identity. It's like everyone's path is different, and even saying that, it sounds like cliche, but it's literally true. No one's path is the same. Yeah. You say, I want to be Kathy Griffin. It's like, well, you can't. I mean, she also, I guess the one through line for a lot of comedians is, Carol Burnett is basically, she's attributed to saying comedy is tragedy plus time, but a lot of us have been through things. But then again, as a stand-up comic, because I talk about those things and I revel in turning the darkness into laughter, everyone has been through something. Yeah. So, and if they hadn't, then my jokes wouldn't be funny. Yeah. Because that's what I talk about. So, and it's not all I talk about, but, that's the one thing. Sometimes people will message me or something and be 18, like, I want to be a comic. It's like, I remember the first advice that was ever given to me by another comic, and they're just like, just do it. And that's it. You literally just have to do the thing. Do the thing that you want to do. Yeah. And that's anything, comedy, apparently hard enough in itself. Yeah. You can talk about it for a really long time. And then after that, maybe you're really good, but you don't do it again. Well, then you're not going to be a comedian because you stopped doing it. Yeah. Nothing is permanent. Like I said, I can think that I've mastered some sort of any part of the quote unquote art of stand-up comedy and be thrown on my ass the next day. I can do the same club 5 shows in one weekend and have 4. I can have 1 be amazing. I can have 3 be really good, and I can have 1 be complete and utter shit that makes me feel like quitting. Yeah, it's like only remembering the bad comments on YouTube, which is a very real thing.
Yeah, and I think I agree. Like the same thing happens to me too. If one negative comment, that's the one you think of, even though there might be like 60 good ones that you just completely forget about. And practice makes perfect too is like the other thing. If you stop doing it, like you said, you won't be as good. And I think we can apply this to anything, that you're doing that you want to do.
I'm not a gymnast anymore because I haven't done gymnastics in 20 years. But I was a gymnast. And I used to be really good.
Yeah.
You have to do a certain amount of upkeep.
Yeah, and you have to kind of choose what you want, where you want to focus.
Yeah. Like you have to keep shaving your legs, unfortunately.
Yeah. Seriously, unfortunately.
You don't have to, but...
Yeah. Or you're just hairy. So what's your favorite part of being a comedian?
I guess my favorite part, pure joy is just being on stage and killing and having fans and the audience liking you enough that you can play, and anything that comes out of your mouth that's new or riff is funny to them because you've won them over.
Do you have
the best part of being a stand-up comedian.
Do you have a favorite set or like a memory where you felt like you made it or you felt like you were really proud of yourself?
Yeah, it always gets trumped. Nothing's permanent, like I said. So it's like I can be like, that was the best set ever. And then I'll bomb the next day, and then I'll have the best set ever another time. And, and the same thing with, like, making it. I think I'd like to think everyone understands that you don't have one break. You have a series of successes over time to prepare you for what is perceived by everyone as your big break. Yeah. Someone's just in anything. Barack Obama wasn't just like a dude they plucked off the street.
Right.
He served his country for many, many years. So it's like, I guess one of my favorite things.
What was the first moment where you were just like, okay, I'm definitely permanently a stand-up comedian? Were you set on that before even?
Yeah, it took me a long time to call myself a stand-up comedian because I think I was embarrassed of it for a while, and I also held it in high regard, and I wasn't just going to call myself a stand-up comedian out of nowhere. Yeah. So like I had to earn it. And but yeah, I guess like something that stands out in my mind is just I used to write down my goals. I still do, but just not as much. But I remember writing like I want to perform at the Lakeshore Theater, which is now defunct, but in Chicago, and I got to perform there. I got to open for Mike DiStefano, who has since passed away. Before he died, he had like a little run on Last Comic Standing, which is kind of even funny to bring up because that is it's an interesting thing for comics to be a part of. But that's also unfortunately how most people would know him. But he had a lot of fans too, and he was really, really funny. And I got to open for him, which is like my first like huge comic I got to open for. And I was in the neighborhood of Lakeshore Theater, and I was getting some soup or something on Broadway at Soup Box, and he walked in and he was like, Beth, and he bought my lunch, and which was just like, at that time I really needed it, and also it was so cool of him. And he said I was doing a good job, and he had merch, which was like a little book of quotes, and he wrote in that for me too. I was just like, keep doing what you're doing.
Aww, that's so cool. What a great memory.
Yeah, he has a pretty infamous, or I guess that's the word you could use to describe it, but story that he's told on the Moth. He, I don't want to call it the wrong thing. I don't know if it's HIV positive or if he had AIDS, but he was a drug user for many years, and he and his wife, both basically. Like, he was clean, obviously, near the end of his life, or not obviously, but he was clean, but he passed away, I guess, from that, if I'm not mistaken. I just don't want to say that wrong. But he has a story about his wife and her sort of last moments that's really good to find on the Moth.
I should listen to it. I love the Moth.
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking, but
Yeah, but a good
he's a
story.
good story. He's a good storyteller.
Yeah, cool. What about the worst part of being a comedian? Something um, that you don't love about it, if there's anything.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I guess, like I mentioned earlier, there's a sort of self-centeredness to it, which affects everything. Your behavior affects everything. So I'm obviously talking in the first person. I'm talking about me. I did this the other day. I. This happened to me. Me. So that's my job. I've turned it into a job. So I've noticed now, because I'm trying to become more aware and figure out what I'm all about, that it absolutely affects my relationships with people. I have really a lot of amazing, wonderful friends in and out of comedy, so I know that I'm not some sort of psychopath that's completely consumed with myself, but that can be troublesome sometimes, where it just feels like, ugh, it makes me want to get out of my own head. But, yeah, I'm trying to think of other things that are...
Is it something that you kind of feel like you're always working because you're always commenting on your life? And is it a way that you kind of process because I kind of imagine it as being like a way to process the world and a way to process your life through your art and process your emotions by writing about them and then talking to people about them. But
Yeah.
with that, I feel like if I would feel like I'm constantly doing that and like turning it off in relationships and just general life. Is that something that you struggle with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think early on, especially, I certainly used it as therapy. Now, I'm not excluding myself from this completely. I think early on, I remember getting comments from, specifically, like, one dude after some show I opened for a guy in suburb of Chicago, and he basically came up to me after the show and was expressing that it was too dark for him, that I needed help, and I was fucked up. So it's like, early on, I think I definitely used it as a form of therapy. However, I'm not a fan of watching someone get up on stage and say, like, I'm poor, I don't have any money, I don't have a job, nobody loves me, I sleep on the floor.
Yeah.
That's not fun for anybody here. I've never admired that. And I've always, I'm now a full-time comedian, but after many years of holding lots of jobs and doing comedy, which I think certainly informed and helped my comedy, by not just like living off of my parent or something like that.
Right.
But, I think I certainly, before I figured out how to turn dark into funny, and it's still not foolproof. I've gone through traumatic things this year that I'm still trying to make funny, that I've made audiences uncomfortable about, which I'm still trying to crack. So there's a fine line between using the microphone as therapy, and usually the outline is comedy. So, the last thing I want to do is get up there and pour a bunch of baggage into the laps of people that have come to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
But the goal for me then would be to share my experience and hope that through skill, I'm able to make a joke about it. And then the person who's also lived that is most certainly sitting in the audience,
Mm-hmm.
then can also find a way out of their own pain.
Yeah, I feel like...
Because of how I looked at it.
Yeah. I feel like vulnerability in anything is what makes it good, in writing and comedy and everything. But I can see how in everything, it's kind of like a fine line between oversharing, or like I always feel like sometimes, even in like blogging and podcasting, like I can get like a vulnerability hangover, of like, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that, But my favorite part of comedy is like when it is kind of dark and really emotional, or I don't even, my favorite part of comedians is like listening to them on podcasts and like hearing them talk about real stuff, not real stuff, it's all like kind of based in reality, I guess, but like the serious-ish stuff, and just like connecting to people as people, because it makes you feel less alone and less weird when someone else can say something you were thinking, you know? And I think that's like, I think there's like a Louis C.K. quote. I don't even know what the quote is, so I don't even know I'm saying this right now, but basically it's like, it's basically, he says that like it's a way to take something that everybody's thinking and like have them flip it on their, you might know the quote, like flip it on their head and like see it in a completely different way. Or maybe it's Jerry Seinfeld, I don't even know, but I was like, oh yeah, that's a really interesting way to look at it. So I can imagine that must be like a fine line to like dance around, though.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, Louis allowed to tell a bad joke, you know, as we're all trying to figure it out. Nothing's like polished. That's the hard part, is you're seeing, you know, at least for most people, you're seeing us learn, you know. You guys are watching me grow on television. Not in the same way that we watch, like, the kids of Full House grow up, you know. But, and I'm not on TV all the time. I'm on TV intermittently. But if you watch my sets in succession, Conan, Pete Holmes, Jimmy Kimmel, my Comedy Central special, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
It's going to be different from the beginning to now. And it will probably change again.
Yeah. And people might be able to relate to different, or they might even like different ones better than because of maybe the stage in life that they're in or something, you know?
Absolutely. And I think too, like, because I'm dumb, I have looked at comments section before, not recently, but somebody will write something like, essentially somebody wrote, and this is not even that bad, I'm not like hurt by this, but they're saying, I like or her set here on Conan's not that good, you guys should go watch her Pete Holmes set. It's like, yeah, I didn't like you when you were fucking in 6th grade, but you're okay now. You know, it's like, you were a dick as a 3rd grader, but you're pretty cool now that you are an adult or an 8th grader. I mean, I don't know, it's a horrible example, but
that is really interesting to think of it that way, that you're really like growing up in the spotlight, you know. And it's and you kind of said this earlier, but I've been saying this all the time. I think our 20s are just freaking crazy, you know, like we grow up so quickly and we change so quickly, and it's like the second adolescence that nobody, you know, tells you is going to happen. And then, you know, I cringe at even thinking how I was a year ago, and then 2 years ago I like need to crawl under the table because I was like so crazy, you know. And then and I have it on fucking tape. Yeah, exactly. And I think in 5 years from now, I'll look back on today and be like, oh my gosh, I said that thing to Beth, and I would be so much more mature in 5 years, you know? So I think it's just, you know, trying to not judge yourself with your future, not judge your past self with your future self, because as long as you were being real then, you did the best you could then, and that's still good, you know?
And nothing can prepare you for being on national TV. You can even say, hey, did you want to come in and rehearse your set, like, on the set of Conan, like, right on the spot where you're going to stop? You want to come do that? And you're like, okay, sure. It will never, ever be the same as him saying, please welcome Beth Stelling, and then you walking out of a curtain to a live audience and staring into a camera. Yeah. There's nothing. That is it. If you bomb so hard and you say, can we redo that? Like, maybe, sure. Then that second time's going to be good. Even in my Comedy Central special, which is my greatest accomplishment, arguably, I mean, in like societally, it's my greatest accomplishment. I walked out, I did 30 minutes, and then I left. Could I have retaken a joke if I thought it was really bad? Sure. But I've also never shot a Comedy Central special. So all I was doing is what I do, which is walk out, tell the jokes, and then leave. As opposed to if I were like super particular or really had a grip on what it is that I wanted to get across. It's like every time I do something, I learn. You know, I don't think I could have retold me better, I guess, than I did. Maybe. And all I had to do was say, hey, guys, can I take that again? And the live audience would have been like, wow, yeah, we like, you know what I mean? Because they're there, because they're having a freaking great time.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And you know who doesn't know that or care? Everybody. When you're watching my set at home, you don't pass around this rumor that gets around to all the televisions like, hey, did you hear she did this in one take? Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit if I did it in 3 takes? You know what I mean? Like, unless there's something like absolutely ridiculous, but I'm no one. So no one's going to be saying like, and did you hear? You know?
Yeah.
Also, there's like, yeah.
Well, now they can hear it on the Wellness Wonderland radio podcast.
Now they know.
That's amazing. That's so cool that you're.
But most of the comics did. You know, there were a couple people that were like, "Hey, can I retake that? I swapped up the words."
Yeah.
But
I would have just assumed that that's how it works. Like, I never even would have known that you had even an option to do that. Like,
but you think about it. You're taking care of yourself by doing that. That's not a weakness. You're saying, I want this to be the best. Right. Can I redo that?
Yeah, but I'm sure on some level you just have to let it go, because you could say that a million times about, you know, editing things and anything in life, you know, but at a certain point you just have to, like, be okay with putting it out there as a product.
Totally.
So what do you do on stage when things aren't going well, or the audience isn't responding, or you're just like, you know, maybe you're 5 minutes into a show, or like halfway through a show, or even, you know, just coming back to yourself when you're on TV or doing a set or anything? How do you shift? Or even in life too, like when you're not, and how do you like get yourself back into the flow?
If I'm bombing, sometimes it's a runaway train, and we just gotta get to the 45-minute mark of my contractually obligated time. Or I will get off 5 minutes early, and no one will blame me because they wanted it to end as well. If I'm bombing, I'm usually sweating and uncomfortable. And there are some comics I love watching that when they bomb, they sort of like call it out. You know, I do my best to like, if a joke doesn't hit in the entire set that might not be going well, I can have a line about it or something, like a recovery line or something. But mostly I'm just trying to get to the end.
So if it's going bad, have you ever had an experience at a show where like it's going kind of bad, but you turn it around and you bring them back up, or not really?
Yeah. I mean, I've had a time where it's been like going okay, then I really lost them and I got them at the end. It's more of I had them and then I lost them. There's some times where, like, say I was set up badly or something, like
the person who introduced you.
Yeah, like say it's been a real bad show and everyone hates it there, and then I have to go on. I've come through for them, you know. I've been like, hey, it's okay, you're in good hands.
Yeah.
But I've also just had to trudge through the misery of what they had already been through, because there's no going back.
That's a bummer.
I've had unruly people who might feel scorned by that sort of thing. Like, I've had people who don't like the show, and then I get brought up, and they assume that they're also not going to like me, so they yell something out. And I've had times where I can put them in their place, and then everybody else is on board. So, yeah. There are times where people...
Oh, sorry.
What? No, it's okay.
I was just going to ask how you handle hecklers, or if you have experiences with that,
or
any, like, funny, weird things.
Yeah, it's different every time, because obviously, you know, the people are all different. The same heckler doesn't show up every show, thankfully. There have been really, really drunk girls that are just taking away the focus of the show and interrupting. There have been really, really drunk dudes who are upset a woman has been talking for too long. There are people who are offended by my jokes and yell something out. I have a bad example of that. That's kind of like a hole to go down, but a just not too bad example, I guess, would be some guy. I think what was the joke that he got all upset about? Oh, sometimes I've opened in the past. It depends. Sometimes I get in the pattern of using the same little opening one line. I used it on Kim Moore. I just said, like, it's great to be here instead of getting married and having kids.
Yeah.
Which, to me, and jokes can be taken in so many different ways. Usually, there's a widely accepted way it's taken, which is, I've given up so much for you,
right.
is essentially what I'm saying. Which I think is funny, which is why it comes out of my mouth, because I think it's funny. So I'm there to have a good time. I'm there to make you laugh. He yelled out, "What's wrong with having kids?" So he already thinks I'm some sort of like anti-kids, anti-marriage, single lady who's 30, and I'm there to like shit on you. It's like, no, I'm here to have a good time. Yeah. It's like my joke where I say, like, you can leave Ohio. Yeah. I love Ohio. I grew up there. It was nothing but good to me. Right. People I love live in Ohio. There's nothing wrong with Ohio. I could potentially move back. Who knows? It's a wonderful place.
Yeah, you're not saying it with judgment. It's just like I totally got that from it.
Yeah, it's a joke.
And I live in the Midwest.
I'm not running for president. Yeah. So when the guy's like, "What's wrong with having kids?" I go, "Are you a father?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "That's what's wrong with having kids." And then he yelled out one more time, and I forget what I said back. Oh, I think he yelled out one more time, and I go, "Are you just going to keep interrupting me because you're mad that I dinged you earlier, and you wish that you could be up here talking?" And everybody laughed, and he was silent the rest of the time because I was doing my job, which is telling jokes. Yeah. And everybody was there to have a good time.
Yeah.
So that's one story that's not too bad.
It's an interesting profession where people can, I mean, I guess they're not supposed to, but people can trip you up in the middle of your thing, and it's almost like accepted and part of it. And then you have to think so quickly on your feet to handle that, or at least not let it throw you. And I can't imagine, like, that just must be so hard.
Yeah, I've absolutely been thrown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a story about my ex-stepdad, and somebody was like, "You disrespected my Lord and Savior." And it was an older-ish couple, not old, not like, but old in that, and like, I don't know, 45, 50, I'm horrible at telling age. And they were with a younger couple who was his to know, 20s, 30s. And they were double date, but they also went to church together. So eventually, basically, I got the older couple to leave because they were so cruel and aggressive. And the younger couple stayed afterwards, and they just said, "We wanted to apologize. We met them at church, and we never would have, a million years would have expected him to yell that. We don't feel like you disrespected the Lord and Savior, and thank you for coming to our town to perform." And I said, "Well, thank you. I had no desire to disrespect the Lord and Savior. However, most of my experiences within the church have been awful." Now, that's the key. Within the church. What church? One specific church, which does not mean all of Christianity. And on top of it, that's my experience.
Right.
I don't have some sort of agenda to make people not believe in God. Yeah. My family believes in God. When I'm home, I sometimes will attend church with my mom. I think for the most part, it's nice to listen to a story. A lot of the pastors in my denomination are storytellers, and it can be uplifting and nice to hear. Other times I've heard him say stuff like, gay is a choice and a couple other things like that. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that some of the kids in the kids section of that congregation are taking a deep gulp and sliding down on their seats because they're absolutely gay. Yeah. So, yeah, this is that's why I didn't originally bring this up, because I have no sort of aggressive stance on whether people should believe or not believe. It's kind of to each their own on that. But, yeah, it bothered me that he thought I was doing that. And I'm not quick to jump to someone hating women. I don't think all men are out to get me. I just think that man was sick of hearing a woman talk for more than 30 minutes because his wife sat there real quiet. Yeah. So that's my judgment on him.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk about your process a little bit because I think that that's probably fascinating. So, when are you most inspired to write, and what does kind of your typical day look like when you don't have a show? And can you just walk us through what happens, where do
Yeah.
you get your material, and what happens when you get an idea? Like, do you carry journals with you? Like, when are you most inspired?
Yeah, I think I have a joke where I say my feelings are like a studio album. They don't come out until like 11 months after the events that inspired them. So a lot of times things will happen to me and it just takes me a while to process it. I
Yeah.
had jokes in my album about a bad relationship that I got out of this summer, and that was taped in September. So June, July, August, I had about 2.5 months to process that. So a lot of those things are raw and not finished, and I put them on because I wanted to. Um, but yeah, usually it takes me a while to process it and turn it into a joke. But it's a series of like trial and error, and sometimes things last for a week, and then I get disinterested in them. Sometimes things will happen to me, and I'll tweet it. Sometimes things will happen to me, and I'll put it in my tweets and save it as a draft, and then scroll through my tweet drafts before a show, and then think of all the things that I was going to potentially joke about but didn't feel like were finished. Um, Sometimes I'll sit down and write. My girlfriends and I, who are comics, this summer, like late summer, we did a little writing retreat, which I'd never done. We just like all rented a place up in Ojai and forced ourselves to write on different topics and just write about all kinds of things. Um, and that was the first time I did that since I was 22. I don't really sit down and like free write or write in chunks. I opened for Anthony Jeselnik on the road all of last year, and he does a thing usually where it's like a daily ritual of writing 3 jokes. I did that for a while. Kind of different, I think, for everybody, but mostly things happen to me. I write down a sentence or a couple words, usually 1 or 2 words, sometimes just 1 word, and then I put it on a piece of paper that's small, and I take it on stage with me, and I press record on my voice memo thing, and then I go. And then I either never listen to the voice memo, or I just know I have it there and when I want to. And sometimes I'll get like in a really worky mode, and I'll listen to a ton of them and write them down word for word. But that's not really my process.
Wait, so your
But
findings, you write it down and then you voice record it, so you hear yourself like giving the joke?
on stage
Oh,
at
on
a show.
stage you record it. Got it.
Yeah, so sometimes I'll come up with something, and the first time that I'll try it is in front of an audience.
So when you're doing a
But
show,
that
is
that takes a
everything
while.
written out? Like, do you have the whole, like, I'm going to say this joke, and then after that, this joke, this joke, this joke? Or is it more
Sometimes
fluid?
yeah, nothing's all written out like verbatim.
Mm-hmm.
I had to turn in a transcript for my half hour, so those jokes are written out, but I had to like sit down and listen to them and type them out. You can also like pay someone to do that, but whatever.
Yeah.
Or there's an app for it too. You send a voice memo. But yeah, so those are typed out because I had to for obviously like
But that was after you
production
did the show.
company.
So before you did the show, you just knew you had like a set in your mind of jokes.
Yeah, so like they needed to approve the transcript,
Oh,
but
so
that's
before.
actually more for. So yeah, that's before I shot my special. That's really so they can be like, don't say Taco Bell because they're a sponsor.
Yeah.
Um, but
But
yeah, mostly
usually,
nothing's written out. Mostly it's just 1 word on a piece of paper, which is called usually a set list. So I have a notebook that just basically has like sometimes around 7 to 8 words on a piece of paper, and then I go up on stage, and then I look down at it, and then I talk.
so it's
And
on,
then
it's with you on stage.
yeah, a lot of times people are upset by that. That's not true. Not a lot of times. Some people are against that. They think it's unprofessional to have a set list on stage with you. But it depends on the circumstance. You know, like my special, obviously I don't have a set list up there with me, but those are jokes that were tried and true.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
more like when you're when you're just like going about your business in life, have you ever like, do you keep a notebook with you then where you write stuff down, or just write stuff in your phone, or like, have you ever been
I just
really
write stuff in
bummed?
my phone. Yeah, I'll write like a sentence or two on my phone, or I'll voice record it in my
Yeah.
phone.
Have you ever been bummed
So
that you've like had an idea and then like been in the shower or something and lost it, or like where do ideas usually come to you, or like do you ever like wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, or like when do you get most of your
yeah,
inspiration? Is it like during the day?
yeah, it's usually when I'm like showering or driving, when I'm
Yeah.
like occupying my, what is it? Occupying my right brain. So
Yeah, something
yeah,
like that.
yeah, and then I totally lose ideas. Absolutely, just like dreams. Like when you wake up and your dream's gone.
Yeah, it's such a bummer.
Yeah, I just have to over the years. Instead of getting like really angry at myself, I just say, well, if it was there, it'll come back.
Yeah.
Because there's literally nothing else I can do.
Have you read Elizabeth Gilbert's book Big Magic?
Uh-uh.
It's about creativity and it's really good. You should check it out. It's a really quick read.
Cool.
I read it in a day, but she talks about and she actually has a TED talk about this. I think it's like Emily Dickinson or like some really famous poet would say that like ideas would come to her, and sometimes she'd be like out in the field and they would just go away because she couldn't get back to the house in time to write them down, or if she would, they would like come back into her mind but like backwards and like all jumbled up or something. And so like the point of the story was that like creativity is fleeting and it can come to you, and if it doesn't hit you, it'll either hit at another time, or like you said, or it'll like move on to the next like able-bodied mind. So I don't know, it's a cool book. I think you'd like it.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's cool. Have you ever had writer's block, or like periods where you just feel really uninspired and to write or make new material?
Totally. Absolutely. It's frustrating when you feel like a failure. Because it's like your only job, really.
How do you move past that? Do you have any like tools for like getting yourself back into the flow? Do you force yourself to try, or do you just kind of like live your life and hope that you find some stuff that's worth like commenting on?
Yeah, just kind of live your life. Try to spend time with other people. Do something fun. Yeah, but it can, sometimes it's a long time not being able to think of anything, and you just have to kind of be
Yeah.
okay with it.
Do you ever get nervous of how something that you wrote will affect other people, especially when your jokes are about, your family or people close to you? Do you tell them about it before, or do you just do it and then they see it when they see it?
Usually do it, and they see it when they see it. Yeah, you know, I like to think I'm a good person, so my goal is never to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
But the goal is not to hurt anybody. However, I think there are times that I've written things to absolutely get someone's attention or to show them that they hurt me. I don't specifically say that in my head when I'm writing it. It's more of like an action,
Mm-hmm.
It's more of like a
Subconscious.
yeah. I mean, I can look back at some of my earliest material about a family member and think, yeah, that's what I was doing. But at the time, I was just kind of living it, saying it because I needed to.
Yeah, and you felt it.
Yeah. But sometimes I want to get at somebody. Like, I'm angry at my brother-in-law because, in my opinion, he doesn't treat my sister the way that she should be treated. And so I wrote a joke that says, I brought my sister with me to Maui when I opened for Pat Oswalt at the end of last month, and I wrote, can't wait to give my sister a break in Maui from being a single mom. I mean, she has a husband, but he's a child.
Mm.
So he didn't like that, but I don't care.
Yeah.
He deserves it.
I guess it's just like I would make that joke just in life, like to another person if I had that situation about my sister, and so and even if it hurt him, if he was like that, I wouldn't care. So what's the difference between you doing it on stage if you really feel it than, me doing it to like another friend, So I guess that totally makes sense.
Yeah. And I don't use his name. Like, obviously, there's another joke about that I've been trying to work out, which doesn't really make sense, and it's more graphic. But yeah, I can't like slander somebody.
Right, right.
So.
Do you have like a favorite bit that you've written, or just a bit that you love doing that you just feels really personal to you, or you know that it's just like a favorite of yours for some reason?
Yeah, I have just like a one-liner that I like, and I just say, "My mom still lives at home, loser." So that's about it. I mean, like, I just like it because it's clever. It's so easy and funny
I
and
love
weird.
that.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, there's more to the story on that. Like, I told it on last call with Carson Daly, and my mom watched it, and she was hurt. My mom's such a smart woman that I couldn't possibly fathom how she would be hurt. I didn't understand why she didn't understand it, and I had to explain it to her.
That's like that would be my mom.
Yeah, but she's so smart and just very unlike her, in my opinion, to like not get that joke. It's like, Mom, of course you live at home. It's your freaking home.
Yeah.
It would be mean if I said if my sister actually lived at home because she was, for whatever reason, couldn't make it on her own. And I said my sister still lives at home, loser. Yeah, that's not a joke. That's just a mean thing. It's a mean sentence.
A mean fact.
But to say my mom still lives at home, loser. Yeah, it's a misdirect is all.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so
if
cute.
I say I grew up in Ohio, my mom raised us in Ohio, my mom still lives at home. Loser. That's, you get it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
In misdirect. You think I'm describing where my mother lives, and then I call her a loser for living in the home that she raised us in. Anyway, yeah, she got upset by that, and that made me cry, because the last thing I want to do is hurt my mother. Yeah, so.
I feel like the only thing she could have thought, like, your mom still lives at home, like, if she lived with your grandparents, then that would be like, that would be a different thing. But yeah, that's like thinking way too much into it.
Yeah.
And missing the point. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's an amazing joke. So I'm really into journaling and like writing to process my feelings, and like I don't know what I'm thinking unless I'm writing. Do you ever journal or keep journals or write about your feelings to process them, or does it usually just come out in a different way?
Yeah. In short, no. I have journal. I've written them like every 6 months or something, but yeah, no. I mean, it sounds silly, but I guess my stand-up is a living journal.
Yeah, live journal.
Yeah, I think a lot of people wonder if what I talk about is true, and yeah, the answer is yes. In 8 years, like, I'm sure there are certainly things that are biased. It's from my point of view. There's always two sides to a story. There are things I have exaggerated, but not. And the one thing I haven't exaggerated that you would go to and think I was is a story about my dad and the amount of raccoons he has in his backyard. But that's just like straight up true. There really are 73 back there, or there were. He's been transporting them, but only thing I've taken not from my own life, but a friend's life. It's just one of many biking stories. Like, it's actually in my special, but I have a joke about a guy saying, "Excuse me, sir," and that's true.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that happened to me, but my friend Erin is the one that had a guy lean over her and say, "Sex." And she told me that one day, and she was like, "You can use that," and I was like, "Okay." And then, of course, I wrote the joke, but the experience happened to her.
Right.
And then I wrote the joke, which is, and then I responded, "No." And then the tag is, I had to write away. Oh, it's hard to write away after you collaborate like that. Something like that.
But couldn't you just said, like, this happened to my friend instead of saying it happened to you? Or is that what you did?
I mean, I could say it happened to my friend just to make my stand-up 100% instead of 99.99% me and true, but it's just, I get, arguably the comedy
keep it easier.
Economy of words.
Yeah.
A lot of times when a comic's like, the other day, I mean 7 years ago, when I first wrote the joke.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Um, so something else that we talk about a lot on this podcast is body image. And since it's been my biggest struggle personally, I want to know from you, especially working in the entertainment industry where your look is so crucial to what you do, and just the fact that you stand up in front of a lot of people and speak. Have you ever struggled with body image, and what are some things that you do to make you feel really confident when you're on stage and what you're doing and wearing and how you're presenting yourself in front of an audience or on TV or whatever you're doing?
Yeah. My confidence usually will come from my performance, or my, my belief in my skill. So, but yeah, I've certainly struggled with body image. When I first started, I was heavier, and so I told jokes about that, and they're self-deprecating. And I like those jokes. It's not painful for me to look back, It's just true. That being said, I also obviously had a certain amount of confidence to get up on stage and talk about them, But that's me at 22 and just out of college, and I have jokes now about losing the weight. So it's like I have jokes all along the way of all the different ways my body has been. I think I've had feelings in the past about being in this industry where I felt like I either had to be really fat or really thin, and those are the only two options.
Those are kind of the only two sizes that are represented in the media.
They're like
which is the problem.
Archetypes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I've strayed away from even that. I think there's a place for everybody. Not. I do think that, and I have to think that. So yeah, whereas it's less in the past it's felt a lot like one girl at a time, please. And that's still somewhat kind of true, but I think there really is. There is room for everybody. It's not like, well, if she gets it, then I don't get it.
Right.
It's like, well, if she gets it, then that means that I have a chance too.
Yeah.
But yeah, now as I've aged, I think I've sort of chilled out a bit on the, I use the term binge eating lightly. Thankfully I've never dealt with a severe eating disorder. I think that some people are more predisposed to that, and thankfully I'm not one of them, where I was binging and then barfing or not feeding myself. But yeah, there are times where I was more an issue of overeating, I think, and not moving my body enough. So, but yeah, I absolutely still to this day I have times where it's a very mental thing. I can weigh myself and I'll weigh the same, but I'll feel so fat,
Right.
You never like hearing it from another woman because you see her how she probably really is. You might, if I say you love my body, say I've had a girl come up to me after a show, for example, and say, I'm not kidding, this has probably happened more than once, I love your legs. And it's like, thank you. I love my legs too. It's like I worked hard for my legs. I work out and I do the bar method, and I was a gymnast for many years, and I played field hockey, and I joke about them being my party guys, which is all the Fireball sisters, which are girls I did and do comedy with. But yeah, it's like we're all looking at each other, and if I if I got up there and I said, I feel fat, well, that girl wouldn't like me. And she wouldn't come up to me afterwards and say, I like your thighs.
Yeah.
I think because I talk about that I was big, that also helps girls warm up to me. Because it's like I've been through the struggle type of attitude.
Or it's just relatable, maybe, that, I think so many women struggle with, myself completely, with body image and eating disorders. And, there's this crazy statistic that 75% of women have like disordered eating of some sort, and it makes sense, because the diet industry and the health movement is crazy and growing, and then also the media, like you said, it really only shows two types of women, and so I think like having more diversity in the media is so important. And my friend has this blog post about, it's like called The Ode to the Medium-Sized Woman, and just basically about how there's these two extremes and there's not as much, and that's changing a bit with some really great examples, but yeah, it has to be something that, it's sad that it's something that we talk about. Like if it was a male comedian, they may not, I would ask if they were on the show because it's like the main topic I talk about is body image, but like people probably don't ask, male comedians about their bodies as much,
Yeah, it's true. A lot of them, I sometimes find myself frustrated if I'm on a shoot and our job is to be funny and the guy is ready in about 5 minutes and I'm sitting there looking at my materials while I'm getting my hair done and my makeup put on.
Yeah.
It's frustrating to me.
Yeah. Do you like that stuff? Like, do you think it's fun to like pick out your looks for the shows, or is it just kind of like an added thing that you have to do? I mean, I guess they have to think about curating the image as well.
It can be very fun, and it can be the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
So if I'm with somebody I trust, it can be nice. But if I'm with somebody who I don't think, in my opinion only, they know what they're doing, then it can be very
stressful,
anxiety-filled.
Yeah,
because I
can imagine that.
Yeah, and there are times where, even today at lunch, I sat with two comics, and one of the girls just did something for Pepsi, and she's like, I hated my makeup. And the other girl goes, I loved it. Because we noticed every little thing about us.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, we're really hard on ourselves, I think, as women, especially with our physicality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is hard. So, okay.
It is. It's hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the most thing to do is, I'm absolutely not against talking about it. That's like, you certainly have to, but sometimes I feel like my job is to just exist as a comic, the way that I am.
Yeah.
Because then some girls see me and what I do, and sure, I might have some jokes about it here or there, but because I exist as me and the way I look, that's enough.
So good.
That's my master plan.
Preach. Well said. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap with some quick fire questions. I've already kept you way over longer than I said I would, but this has been great.
Let's do it.
All right, so what's your favorite color?
Purple is my first come to mind answer, so I'm going to go with that. Yeah, but I definitely am particular about colors, but I like purple.
Nice. What piece of advice would you give to your 25-year-old self?
Oh, gosh. 25. What a good year it was. Advice to my 25-year-old self. I'm trying to think about where I was. I mean, this is something I majorly still struggle with, but listen to yourself. It's so like cliche and very broad and hard to grasp even, but yeah, try to listen to yourself.
Nice.
Trust yourself. Yeah.
It's cliche because it's true. That's a good one.
Yeah.
What's something you've learned in the past year?
I am in charge.
Nice.
Yeah. Kind of like what I told you, even with my special, where like I told you, I don't regret the way that it turned out at all, but all I had to do was remember that it's my special and my name's on it. So if I want to take something again, I can. Truly no regrets on that, but I am in charge.
Nice. Okay, so I ask these questions to everybody, and I really like them because it really gives you a peek into their lives. So what are the first few things you do when you wake up in the morning, some morning routines that you have that are kind of your non-negotiables that you do when you get out of bed, and how they affect how the rest of your day goes. And then the same thing for the evening. What are the last few things you do before you go to sleep?
Oh, dear. Yeah, these are things that I need to change, and this is so funny because I was in Maui and I got a massage, and I was like, I need to drink more water, and the lady was like, have you been trying to change that? Or she said, do you want it? Or she said, it was perfect. I'm sure I wrote it down somewhere, but she was like, I forget if she said, do you want to change that? No, because I said I need to drink more water. And she goes, have you been making an attempt to change that or something like that? And I was like, I loved how kind of harsh it was, because it's like, no, I haven't. So, like, I want to change that. I want to change that. I look at my phone before I go to bed, and the first thing I do in the morning. But that is what I do. I look at my phone. Email, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, I need to change that. But then it's coffee, and I'll usually make coffee on my V60. And I think that's just kind of that's it. When I was doing my daily ritual, I would write 3 jokes. Usually they would be garbage, but yeah.
Yeah, just force yourself to do it. So are your days really unstructured then, since you usually have shows at night? Do you have to make any structure for yourself to like do work at a specific time, or like do you have to leave the house to like work from somewhere else, or like what's kind of your process to like motivate yourself to be productive?
Fairly unstructured. And because I have been traveling so much on the weekend to different cities to do stand-up clubs, I've allowed myself to get so out of whack that when I am even here, I'm not structured well. When I'm around and I'm in a good rhythm and I feel in control, I'm waking up, I'm going to do the bar method, or I'm hiking, I'm thinking of jokes, and then I'll come home and listen to a set or two and think about my set for that night, for that show.
So one big thing that you do is listen to your old sets and kind of learn from them and critique them. Is that kind of a big thing you do each?
I could absolutely do it more, but yes.
Cool.
I could absolutely do it more. I avoid it sometimes.
Yeah, I bet it's... does hearing your own voice, does that freak you out now, or have you done it so much that it's just like you kind of are past that and it's just... Yeah,
I'm totally fine with it. I'm mostly just listening to the material.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so this is a fun one. You were having a party and you can invite 5 people. Who would you invite? What would you make? And what do you hope that someone turns and asks you about at the dinner party? And what do you hope that someone doesn't ask you about that you don't feel like talking about?
Okay. The 5 people I invite. That's hard. I guess my mom, my sister Megan, my sister Hannah, Mary Hollis, my best friend, and the guy that I'm dating, Sam. And I'll make, what else make? I won't make Chipotle. I'm just kidding.
Chipotle is so good.
I don't know what I would make.
You could make homemade Chipotle. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I would make really good steak and vegetables.
Nice.
And I would hope somebody asked me about... They're all people I know and love, but I would love to talk about my nieces and nephews. I could talk about them the whole time, and then I would hope nobody asked me about my meetings or what I'm working on or who I met with and all of that.
Yeah.
Business stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
What is the best and worst advice you've ever gotten?
Man. I feel like the worst advice I've just tuned out.
Good. Yeah, we don't even need that. What's the best advice?
Yeah. Best advice. I guess I can't even really attribute to anybody. It's just something that I give to other people too. But it's just, do what you think is funny.
Yeah.
Also, I've had friends in the past who have pulled me out of things by saying, like, there is something for you. This just isn't it. So, yeah.
Nice.
You did well on something that wasn't built for you. That type of thing.
Yeah, that's a good one, too. So, you're trapped on a deserted island, and you can bring with you one person, one TV show to binge watch, one book, one movie, and one food. Go.
I would binge watch Parks and Rec. I would bring the book, a poetry book. Oh shit! Sorry. I just pulled out a plug with my foot. I would bring a poetry book. I have this one from college. It's just like a pocket anthology of poetry that Penguin came out with. What were the other ones? One
and food. And
movie. Movie. Mrs. Doubtfire. Person on a deserted island. I guess I would have to have a penis. I'll say the guy I'm dating, Sam. Yeah.
And then a food you wouldn't get sick of.
Oh, I guess Indian food, which is such a bad idea for a hot deserted island without a toilet. But
the
I'm
whole
gonna do
island
it.
can be your toilet.
Yeah. Yeah. Indian food, rice and curry.
Nice. That sounds pretty nice. Indian food, Parks and Rec.
Pretty
Poetry.
Good life.
Yeah. It's not so bad. Okay, so now recommend just like a couple things in a couple categories. So like a song you're loving right now, a movie you're loving right now, and maybe like a book you're loving right now, or anything else that just like you're loving right now.
Yeah. Song. I just got Adele's new album, and I haven't really. I've listened to it, of course, but I've really only listened on repeat to the first two songs on the album. So Adele, 25. I also love Sia. Her new thing, I think it's called "This Is Acting." I'm not answering your question well, but song on repeat. Yeah, song on repeat. I guess. Lapsley is the artist, and the song is "Hurt Me." But also "Alive" by Sia. Anyway, movie. I really liked the documentary about Amy Winehouse. It's called Amy.
I've been wanting to see that. I almost went to see that in the theater, but ended up seeing something else. Yeah, I need to watch it.
Yeah, and then book. I just got a couple of new ones. My friend Emily Gordon, she wrote this book called
she's so cool.
Super You.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's so cool.
So,
I'm like obsessed with her.
Yeah, she's a great person. She worked with me on my Kindle site, actually.
It's so cool. Yeah, she's amazing. I've loved her on the Pete Holmes podcast, and that's how I found out about you too, actually.
Cool. Yeah, Pete's a good dude.
Yeah, he's so cool. I love his podcast.
Yeah. So yeah, and then Carrie Brownstein's new book too. It's called "Hunger Makes Me." What's that? "Hunger Makes Me a Modern Girl." Yeah, "Hunger Makes Me a Modern Girl," a memoir by Carrie Brownstein.
Cool. I'm gonna check that out too. What is like a weird pet peeve about yourself, or something that like not many people would know about you?
I'm just not very good at saying what I want to the exact person. Yeah, it's been bothering me lately.
Nice. You can. I'm trying to think. I could say what the massage therapist said. Like, well, are you trying to change that?
Yeah, exactly. We'll see.
It's hard. It's so hard. I struggle with that too. Um,
Yeah.
what's your biggest like goal that you're working towards, like either in your career, just in general in your life, or something that you're working towards, or something that you want? This is good. This is you're asking, telling what you want. This is practice.
Yeah, exactly. Working towards saying what I want, whether it's at a restaurant or in a relationship, and saying what I need, like what I want and need, being able to say it to the person I need to without feeling like I'm inconveniencing them or, you know. Yeah, I need to do a better job of, getting like in touch with myself, finding out what I actually do want and not just doing it to make someone else's life easier, please somebody else. Or sometimes you think that you're pleasing someone else and it's just like not even good for them either. So what was the point? Yeah. And then just working towards my new hour special. I want to have like a really good hour special to put out for people. Stand up.
Cool. I can't wait. It's going to be so amazing.
Thank you, baby.
Seriously, thank you so much for coming on the show and everything you shared. And this is so amazing. So thank you for being here. And then the last question that I ask everyone, as you know, the name of this podcast and my blog is The Wellness Wonderland. So when I offer that term to you, Beth, to live in a wellness wonderland, what comes up? What does that mean to you?
That means like the bar method, a bunch of times a week hiking outside and eating paleo and having good delicious coffee and having good conversations and listening to yourself and being in a healthy relationship with friends and lovers.
Amazing. So great. Thank you so much. This is so much fun. Thanks for doing this and being here and figuring out the phone stuff and hanging out with me.
No problem. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad that you found me.
Yeah, this is amazing. So thank you so much. And maybe next time you're in Columbus, I can come down and see a show and hopefully meet you in person.
That sounds good.
And if you're ever in Detroit, I'll see you too.
Okay, cool. That sounds good.
All right, I'm so excited, you guys, because Zeb, the founder of my new favorite journals, which I have right in front of me, North Books, is on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Zeb.
Thank you, Katie. It's really awesome to be here.
So tell me, why did you want to start a company that is doing stationery, that is doing journals? Obviously, I'm a huge fan of journals, so why did you want to make these?
I didn't set out to make journals at all. I had a software startup that was struggling, and I needed to pull something else together to kind of sustain myself, really. And I looked and said, I want to be able to sell a physical product, something where I don't have to figure out the business model. And the things that I had with me and the things that a lot of kind of people in startups and geeks and just in the city, I'm in New York, have with them is a notebook. No matter how technologically savvy we are, most of us still carry around and appreciate paper and in office settings and freelance settings and coffee shop settings. So I really looked for what would I use and what would I not be embarrassed to sell to a friend, and what did I think I could take on. And notebooks just fit all those pieces for me.
That's so cool. So when did the company begin and how are things going now?
Northbooks started only a little over a year ago. And it's been a very exciting and bumpy road, but it's going really well right now. I'm really counting my blessings. I'm able to, cover expenses and grow and start to design new product lines. I'm able to I do all the design and choose all the kind of papers, and I've done so much learning about how that works, who can do what in the business, how I can get them printed, how I can get them distributed, and it's just been super learning phase for the first 6 months, and now I'm about to do that again as I branch out into new kind of types of notebooks.
Cool. So what's been a challenge as an entrepreneur that you've had, that you've learn something from, or advice you can give to someone that has a cool idea that might want to start something?
I mean, my biggest advice is just to choose something you're passionate enough about where you'll ride out the hard stuff. And then to, connect with a couple of friends or mentors that have some experience that you can bounce things off of when you're having a hard time, and other people that you can help, and they can bounce things off you and you can help them grow. I think when you're able to give back and get a little from a peer group or kind of collaborators, then I think you're in a good space to learn and grow.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So with North Books, what makes them different? What makes them unique? Can you tell us a little bit about the products and how they're sold, and what people are saying about them, what the reaction has been? Obviously, I'm your newest fangirl because I love them, and I've been giving them out at my book launches, and people are loving them, but I want to hear it from you.
Well, thank you. You're awesome to say that. We've been really well received, but not in a flood out of the gate. Now we are. But it was slow at first, and I didn't know if it would work for many months. It wasn't until I got through Q4 and end of November, end of December, that I thought it was going to be a viable business after last summer. But really what sets us apart is we keep it simple. It's we just higher quality materials and paper, and we are designed, sourced, and made all in the USA. So I wanted to kind of fill the hole that I think is on a lot of marketplaces where, if you want to buy a nice journal, you either have a knockoff drugstore or Staples type brand, or you have Rhodia from France where you're going to pay a lot of money, or the big elephant in the room is Moleskine, and they are pretty high quality, but a lot of people don't know or ignore the fact that they rely on China and Vietnam for all their production. So you're still buying something that's relying on cheap labor out of the country and being imported and sold in mass in the stores. So we wanted to be the smaller, made in the USA. We say made with a heart in the USA kind of version.
Yeah. I love that. I love the made. I'm looking at it on the back, made with heart in the USA. Can we tell people where they're made, and how did you decide on Ann Arbor? It's so cool. It's so close to me.
That was trial and error. I did a lot of research after my first print run was actually in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg, right near where I live. I live near the Williamsburg Bridge, and I learned a ton printing locally because I got to go into the plant and see how they did everything. And I also learned that a lot of people can't print notebooks. It's not a skill set that every printer has. So about a quarter of those first run notebooks were no good. So that's when I ended up searching for a higher quality printer that I could rely on for this special kind of product. And the Midwest just seems to have a lot of that old industry still kind of thriving. And that's how I ended up back in Michigan.
Very cool. Are you from Michigan?
No, I'm not. I just visited.
I just heard you said back, so I thought maybe you were. Well, next time you're in Ann Arbor, if you're ever in Ann Arbor, we should get together in person.
Yeah, that'd be great. And obviously, the next time you're in New York, that would be nice too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been great. I'm so excited to talk to you. Congrats about a year plus of North Books, and thank you so much for your support of my book tour and the podcast. And like you said, as soon as we connected and you reached out that it might be a fit, I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. And it was so funny because I actually had ordered on Amazon a couple, I think they came in a 4-pack or something, to send out with my books to a couple people. And they're the exact same size, the perfect size of my book. They match it perfectly. So for anyone who has my book and wants a supplement journal, because I say right in the book that it's not a workbook, you need a journal, and one that, like you said, you don't want to be embarrassed to carry around, grab my book, grab one of Zeb's North Books, and they're a perfect complement to each other. They fit perfectly next to each other. So anyway, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Tell people where they can get your notebooks and how they can keep in touch with you. Are you on social media? Tell us everything.
Yeah, well, thank you for all that. Your story and journaling, I mean, that's kind of part of the naming of North Books too, was the idea that putting things on paper helps you find direction, and adding North in the name was part of that. I also have a nephew named North, so that was also part of the naming. It was on the tip of my tongue a lot.
And I didn't even ask that question, but I forgot, so that's perfect. I'm glad that it worked in.
Yeah, and a lot of the people love us the most because we generally have higher quality paper than anybody else out there. We just spend a little more on materials, but we don't have like ribbons, and although we will soon in the future, but we don't have like bands and pockets and fancy things. We're like very basic, but very like simple and elegant and pretty and durable. So that's mostly why people get with us. On Amazon is where we sell a ton straight to consumer, and that's where you can see the most reviews. We sell in 1, 3, and 5 packs of the soft covers that you've been mentioning. We have some hard covers as well. And we're on gonorthbooks.com. So Northbooks with a go in front of it is our handle for most things. It's our URL. We're on Facebook. I'll answer any questions right away on there. We're on Instagram, where you posted recently. And we love to hear from people on Instagram and see pictures of people using the journals. And we're very open to ideas and growing with people. Right now, a lot of people are loving the dot grids and using us because bullet journaling is kind of taking off as a trend, and people are really loving our journals for that. We do custom cover front notebooks for businesses. So for instance, like WeWork bought a bunch of notebooks for their employees, and they did their own design on the front cover, and we do keep the back cover. So we're doing some business to business stuff like that too. And so, yeah, we can help businesses, and we can help just everybody who just wants a affordable, because especially when you buy in packs, we get really affordable, simple journal that is good for every day, fling in your bag and use in meetings or in class or wherever.
Oh, they're so good, and they're so not heavy, which I love, because when you're walking around all day like I do, you can just put in your backpack and it's not heavy. And I'm just sitting here smiling like I'm so glad we connected. My dream to have a sponsor that was a journal company has now come true. So I'm so glad that this is such a perfect aligned sponsor to the Let It Out podcast, because it's so perfect for my Let It Out book, my book about journaling. It couldn't be better. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you to your fans and readers.
All right, guys, there you have it. Go ahead and tweet at Beth and tell her thank you for coming on the podcast. Be sure to check out North Books. They sound really awesome, right? They're super cool. Check them out. Thank you for sponsoring the show. Thank you to Beth for coming on the show. And next week on the podcast, I have the amazing Elizabeth D'Alto. So if you don't know Elizabeth D'Alto, do your research this week, or you can just wait and I'll tell you all about her next week. Until then, make sure you grab your tickets for Toronto. If you live in Toronto, I would love to see you. If you don't live in Toronto, you should come too. It's a great city. And in the meantime, help out the show by sharing it with a friend. That's really helpful. Subscribing on your cellular device, also really helpful. Leaving a review on iTunes, very helpful. Checking out my book. You know where to find it, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Leaving a review on there is super nice of you. Thank you to everyone who's left one. And you know what? I really love you guys. Oh, sign up for my email list. That's how you get all the updates. And there's a private Facebook group for everyone who listens to the podcast to meet each other, hang out, chat, share cool links, just be like internet friends. It's really fun. So make sure you join that. The link to that is in the show notes. It's called the Let It Out Listener Squad, I think. And it's really a good time over there. So, all right, I love you guys. I am going to go to bed now. Talk to you later. Bye.